Hello. Hello. It's that time again. It's that time every week for the most part. And I think, if I don't miss my guess, I've been doing these weekly satsangs now, I think for over 2 years. Is I think that's correct. I think it's been over 2 years that I've been doing these online satsangs. And today, because I wasn't thinking, I'm broadcasting on Facebook as well. So completely accidentally, because I normally just do this on YouTube, but now that I've started, I'll leave it and we'll see if anybody from Facebook wants to show up for satsang. So welcome everyone. I see that people are arriving, and didn't have a real theme for this. As you can see, it's kind of cloudy today. It's been raining the last couple of days. I may have to actually move inside at some point, but the weather's funny in the mountains. Sometimes it looks like it's really going to rain, and then it doesn't. It's really a pretty dry place here. So hello again to everyone. Welcome as people are beginning to arrive. Didn't really have a theme for today, except uh, self-inquiry and what that actually means. Just kind of came to me now, because I'm going to be doing. I was supposed to be doing a live retreat in Canada at the end of July at the Krishnamurti Education Center, but because of the fact that there aren't any live events going on right now, and there may not be for some time to come, we're going to be doing it live stream. So I'll be doing 3 days in a row, 2 hours a day. That will be like a retreat, and I'm hoping everyone will treat it as a retreat. So, and the whole retreat will be dedicated just this incredibly potent subject of self inquiry. Um, the very famous sage Nisargadatta Maharaj, it was the book I Am That actually brought me into the world of Advaita. I wasn't really aware of it. And very right on the heels of that was Zen, so it all came together. And Nisargadatta, very interesting character, regular guy, nothing special about him. He made cigarettes for a living. He made a little shop in Calcutta, Mumbai, making cigarettes. They're called bidis there. Not a very interesting fellow at all, but he met his guru, and his guru told him, "You're not who you think you are." Now, he only met his guru like once or twice, and then his guru died. And he said that he trusted his guru, and his guru told him to simply follow the sense of I and just stay with it. So he trusted him in implicitly, and so every spare moment he had, that's what he did. He simply turned his attention to the sense of I. That turning the attention to the sense of I is satsang. That's what satsang is all about. We want to find, we know the word I, we know thoughts about I, we have images of ourselves, but what is there, right, that had to have been there before even the thought of I could arise? Now, for most people, well, it's my body. I was born. And just using traditional logic, you can't contradict that. But the beauty of self-inquiry is that it recognizes that the body the sensations that are the body are an experience that someone is having. There's a consciousness here, and even material sciences, even the most strict materialist recognizes that the origin of consciousness remains a mystery because it shares no attributes with the supposed particles out of which it's made. Now, there's some people that are just strict materialists, like Richard Dawkins, you know, who wrote The God Delusion, a book I really liked, by the way. But he's such a strict materialist. They just assume that it's all made out of matter. That yeah, consciousness is a mystery, but we'll explain it eventually. Some kind of functioning in the brain. But if you're willing to just take the point of view that something cognizes our experience. The eye, light strikes the eye, right? The way it would strike the lens of a camera. But the eye isn't doing the seeing, is it? It's collecting light. That light wave is converted into electrical impulses. It goes through all sorts of different parts of the brain, none of which are seeing this. They're simply reacting, right? At some point, right, somewhere, something sees it. Something, some entity sees it. Now, the materialist will say, well, that's a function of the brain. Matter of fact, they even say it's this little bit, I know, near the near the amygdala or something like that, that uh, in the frontal cortex, and that's it. It's some kind of a little structure, although nobody's ever been able to identify that structure. What if would we be willing to consider that the consciousness that is actually cognizing all the rest of this stuff, that point at which something says, I see, is different than the material structure? That's the whole point of this. If you're willing to consider that, you're open to the possibility of looking at your experience from a completely different perspective and then recognizing the only thing you ever experience is consciousness. That the existence of a material universe is theoretical. It's a belief. Even the Dalai Lama referred to matter as a metaphysical belief, not a truth. Metaphysical, interestingly enough, right? It's a belief that what I'm experiencing has been made out of matter. And self-inquiry is how we begin to question that. Say, is that really true? What's my experience? That's what satsang is. What is my experience? And using my experience as an authority. I can draw all sorts of genuinely authoritative conclusions, no matter how much they contradict the conventional wisdom or the leading theories of the day. This is what self-inquiry is all about. That which is actually cognizing. And it's different, isn't it? Right? There's someone saying, yes, I see that. Now, a robot doesn't have that. It makes it the most complex and lifelike robot. And it's going to say, I see that. But there's nobody actually there. It's words coming out, phrases may even look very, very lifelike, right? Like in a virtual reality. But there's no sentience there. Your sentience, your existence cannot be denied. I can't ask you, do you exist? And you say no. Can't it can't happen. Becoming curious about the actual cognition itself, in other words, consciousness, and the eye that actually sees, the ear that and actually hears, touches, and experiences. Who is that? That's self inquiry. Who is that? And since I can't directly see it, because it's where I'm looking from, I have to rely on a completely different way of thinking, of looking, of inquiring, of knowing. I can't just describe it. Something much more deep and intimate. And that's what satsang is. It is the invitation into that depth, into that kind of an inquiry that is willing to completely contradict what everyone has ever taught you is true about you. Hello, Jay. Wonderful time of Sunday. I agree. Top of the day, two of the day to you, G, and everyone. Brian in Virginia, John Watson from Glasgow, October Paul. Hi, everyone. Hello, October. My old favorites are all here. Rosario in Spain, Inner Aesthetics. It's been constant police paramedic sirens here in Los Angeles. Yes. It's such a tragedy. I mean, it's more than a tragedy. It's unthinkable. My hope for this is that I'm feeling a very different energy, and people have asked me to comment on this. I'm I mean, there's not much to say about the blatant racism, although many people try to deny it or minimize it, or Fox News tries to pretend that it doesn't even exist at all. Um, people want to make change Black Lives Matter into All Lives Matter, which is really an appropriation to belittle it. It's a racist thing to do. Um, the blatant racism is obvious. We can't pretend it's not there. And I'm always startled in myself, right? Thinking I understand, and to an extent I do. But I have friends of mine who've been stopped for absolutely no reason by the police. One friend of mine talked. He was driving somewhere with his wife and his two young daughters, like young, 4 or 5 years old, in the back of the car. Stopped by the police, harassed. They ridiculed the daughters. I mean, it was, as a white male, I have I, I can try to empathize. I have no idea. I was born with white male entitlement. I do not know what that life is like, and for any white person to say they do, is is demeaning. Right? All I can do is say that this is reprehensible. And I feel a different energy this time, though. It's happened before. I mean, it happens all the time. Every now and then it's getting on film now. People are having their cameras. It's making to the national stage. But this kind of stuff is going on all the time in the United States. We have 4% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's population in prison. I mean, that's staggering. It's supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. And the number of people that are incarcerated, and 80% of them are people of color. I think more than that are people of color, and like 60 to 70% are black. I mean, it's just rampant. What I feel different about this one that's happening And I do not condone violence, but I certainly understand it. Something like this happens, and a pent up anger that's been just festering for years, decades really, right? Just explodes and goes nuts. Manipulation, the media will manipulate it and like there's nothing we can do about that nonsense. But there's an energy about this one that's like, no, we're not just going to go be quiet and go home. And I'm hoping that a tragedy like this, that George Floyd becomes a Rosa Parks, the old woman who just refused to give up her seat on the bus to a young white man, and it launched the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement has not completed its work yet, obviously, but I'm feeling that there's an energy that's arising that really is saying enough. This is this is no longer acceptable. And of course, we have a racist in the White House, right? The things that he has said about it are reprehensible. He's being moronic. They are cruel. They're immoral. They're decadent. I can't say enough bad things about the way the pandemic, all of this, the deep human needs being completely ignored by our government. Matter of fact, being demeaned and nothing but contempt. It is, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of disgusting stuff in American politics. So what do we as the people of spirit, people of character, people of heart do? Well, you don't mince words, as you see. I just didn't. You call it immoral and decadent behavior by its correct name. Don't gloss it over, right? Or try to gaslight it. Um, it doesn't work. But at the same time, my recurring theme throughout all of this has been the phrase from Christ: "Wiser than serpents and harmless as doves." We can't meet violence with violence. It doesn't work, and they're better at it than we are. There is a deep and undeniable and powerful transformation that's taking place in human consciousness, and nobody's controlling it. People who think they're controlling it, trying to manipulate things, they're not. There's something, truth is revealing itself. You can't hide the truth forever. We've hid it for a long time, but you can't hide it forever. It holds all the cards. A belief, no matter how well marketed it is, no matter how well promoted, no matter how much it obscures the facts, is still a belief. And it requires people to believe it. If you look around, the people aren't believing it anymore. And that goes deeper than just our relationship with politics and economics and all of that. It goes right to the heart of who we are. So I'll kind of leave it at that for a bit. If anybody has any more questions about that, I'm happy to go on about it. Um, Moral outrage is in order, and it's, but remember, it's symptomatic. This isn't just this one police guy who went out of control, or the three guys who were standing there and let it happen. This is systemic. This is an attitude that is being built up. Look at the hardware, the equipment they're using, the militarization of it. We can't think of anything as an isolated incident. It is all a reflection of a rotting culture. And don't put your stock in it. We're building a new one. What we're doing right here, right now, is building a new culture. We're building a new world. It's right in the midst of the rubble, right? The building is still burning. It hasn't even crashed yet, but we're in the basement, and we're creating the blueprint for what in fact is going to be something we'll all be proud of. But it's not going to look like that for a while, and it's not going to be easy. But victory is assured because you can't thwart the truth. So I'll leave it at that. Greetings, says John, from a stunning summer day in Ireland. Ah, beautiful. Namaste, GP. Hello, Daniel. Detest home. Can I call you something else? Oh, it's David. David, there you go. David in Mexico. Good. Okay. Detest home 85. David's better. Thank you. Infinity Coach Saab in Paris. Hello, hello, hello. Robert in Nevada and Henderson. David and Elaine, IGP and everyone. They're in Southeast England. Glorious sunshine. You guys in Ireland. Look, I'm in New Mexico, right? The high desert, and I'm getting clouds, and I may have to move. I may have to move inside, which is not nearly as interesting a place to broadcast from. Anyway, Sue McIntosh. Hello, Sue. So excited for Satsang. Tucked up in bed on a chilly winter's night listening to you. Ah, yes, you're right. You're in South Africa, which is the opposite. We're going into summer. You're going into winter. Eli. Hello, Eli. Ursula in Madeira Island. Hello, Lisa. Ava. Namaste. Good to have you here. Eli. Oh, yeah, Jay. Jay, my buddy. Oops. Don't want to put it up there. Hey, G, good to see you again. My wife, our son, and I moved into my parents' place 2 weeks ago. Long story short, the decision was initiated on my dad's part, but I was kind of hesitant because of how opinionated he can be. Let's see. Is there a question in there? I certainly understand your hesitation. It's with a wife and son moving in with somebody, um, and you certainly want to be in a place where it's harmonious, um, so that there isn't that kind of strain. But since you're already there, and your dad may be opinionated, he may say a lot of things that you don't agree with, or you think are actually even kind of ridiculous. Um, Remember that you're always in possession of your reactions, right? When somebody says something, they're very opinionated, and it contradicts what your opinion is on one hand, but even contradicts what you know in your heart isn't true, right? Um, there's nothing you can do about it. Arguing, right? Sometimes, if people are really open, everybody holds their opinions about stuff, right? But if people are open and are really wanting to know what's true, to get to something that's true, they'll engage. They'll engage in a conversation. They'll talk about these things. Well, what about this? No, I hadn't thought about that. And then a repartee can take place. It's quite intimate and beautiful and very human and the best thing. Otherwise, but if they're not, you know, oftentimes, like the Jehovah's Witness comes to the door, we'd like to talk to you about God. No, you don't. You don't want to talk to me about God. You want to convince me that you're right. You have no interest in talking about it. So when you know that, there's nothing to do. It's say, let's see how you feel that way. Now, a lot of opinionated people, because they want to enforce their opinion, they're goading you. They want to get you into some things so they can, so that they can assert themselves. But the best salesman in the world can't sell you if you don't buy. Remember that reaction to their opinionatedness, right, is just something that you can watch. Everybody has that feeling. I have that feeling, right? You hear somebody, when I hear some prominent people saying things that are just absolutely inane, you kind of want to, you just kind of go, that's the reaction. And you let it move through you. Don't let them goad you into an argument, because they're not really interested in having a conversation. So those are the two ways of doing it. If they're really engaged and they're really wanting to know something, well, then you just then a genuine exchange can take place. You get it anywhere. That can happen in the supermarket. It can happen in Uber, right? That can happen anywhere. And even people you know very well, it's often impossible for that to happen. So don't get me wrong, he's a good guy, but his shortcomings cover the good qualities most of the time. He lost his youngest son to suicide, but ooh, and these shortcomings were a reason. And uh, back then he used to drink, which made it worse. He doesn't drink since then. Yeah. One example, yesterday I was moving furniture and my brother-in-law and I forgot the keys to this tool shed in my pocket. When we were heading to the gas station, I suddenly realized I had the keys with me and I had to go back home, even though he was at work. Well, every difficult opportunity is a teacher. We get a lot of sarcasm for small things like that, right? Sarcasm can't hurt you if you don't take it in. Every circumstance, Ram Dass says, if you want to know if you're enlightened, go spend a week with your parents. it's it's a beautiful opportunity while you're there, and you're not going to have to be there all forever. It's a beautiful opportunity for us to see our own reactive patterns. And remember, the way the nervous system works, it pre-programs its responses to events, but it doesn't activate those programs until the event occurs. So we may think, oh, we're totally good, right? But all that means is the button hasn't been pushed. And yes, I'm going to have to go inside. If you can, whoa! This just suddenly it's like we're not in Kansas anymore. Hold on 1 second while I move inside. I'm going to mute. And where's my mute button? All right. That took me by surprise. All right, so. Okay, sorry about that, folks. I trust you can all still hear me. The connection maintained. Now I've kind of gotten into my little room. I know what I'm going to do during the winter because I do almost everything outside. So those of you who hopefully it all went dark, you heard what happened. That all of a sudden out of nowhere, I saw the clouds and I thought it might rain, but all of a sudden it just wind. Look at my hair. The wind picked up, and I realized that I might get soaking wet if I stayed out there much longer. So where was I? I was talking to Jay. I was talking about when the way the nervous system works is it creates these pre-programmed reactive mechanisms that aren't activated until the button gets pushed. It's one of the reasons you can go to a retreat, right? Have this marvelous time, come out floating on air, and then the next day you're yelling at people and you're angry, you're upset, because in the environment of a retreat, which is valuable, of course, you've removed everything that normally triggers you, and that gives you a certain space so you can dig inside. But it confuses people when you go back out into the world. Well, I thought I was through it. No, it just means that button hadn't been pushed. So when you're with your parents and or in-laws or anybody, it's a wonderful opportunity to notice that that you're getting triggered. Beautiful. And if you see the trigger and you don't react, you just kind of let it move through you, you won. Right? You're conscious. Right? The key is for most people to think, if I get triggered, well, I guess I didn't get it. I'm not spiritual enough yet. Not true. If you see it, right, that's it. Because when you see it, you don't participate. You don't get dragged into the story. You don't get dragged into its narrative. You don't start acting it out. That's when you go unconscious. So as long as you don't do that and you sit right in that space of feeling the impulse, feeling the button being pushed, but not doing what the button tells you you're supposed to do, that is where the energy of the reactive pattern dissolves and consciousness grows. So my the woman who rents me the room here has a cockatoo and a parrot. So that screaming you hear in the back, if you hear that little scream in the background, it's just the cockatoo chatting about stuff. First time I heard it, I totally freaked out. I thought when I rent a room for it, that was in pain and I needed to call 911. So if you hear that, don't be concerned. We're good. Let's see. Eli. Hello, GP. Did I get everybody? I see this. Good. Just, I'd like to get your opinions about the riot protest. What actually could be done to address the root suffering of humanity instead of fighting against the manifestations like racism. Well, I did cover it a bit earlier, and maybe I need to say more about it. The root cause is egoism. It's our own egoic minds. It is an identification with a group, which you can call it a group ego. A white supremacist has a group ego. Right? The ego appears in individuals, but egos appear. They're like this phenomenon that appears at every level of organization where there's intelligence. So there's a family ego, right? Royalty is a family ego. There's a community ego. My town's better than your town. My state's better than your state. My country's better than your country. Right? These are all imaginary boundaries created by the ego to give itself definition. Right? And the ego wants to be better, but will accept being worse. It just needs to define itself. So the white supremacist, the racist, really believes they're superior. They need to believe that, and to question that is to question their own value, their own worth. You can understand why it is so intransient, even though you can show them all the evidence in the world that there's absolutely no difference in intelligence and capability or anything between any of the races. There's no contradictory evidence to that, but the ego won't let that in because it threatens itself. I once heard an interview with a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party, a former high-ranking member of the American Nazi Party, total racist, total bigot. Now, the Nazi Party, they're not just white supremacists. They're not just against blacks. They're just white supremacists, right? It means Jews, Muslims, Arabs. It also means people with handicaps, mentally challenged, physically challenged, anything that isn't this perfect white thing. Right? Well, this particular guy, a high-ranking member, like one of the senior guys in the country, had a retarded son, and he was told that, and part of their thing, he had to kill it. That was what he had to do, and he couldn't do it. And it was that changed him. It was that got him to see through the horror of what he had become and what he was participating in. He had to be confronted with killing his own son before the light began to dawn. So you can see how deeply these things run. And while we have to protect ourselves from this and others, we have to stand up wherever we see it. We have to draw the lines. At the same time, we have to have enormous compassion of the kind of twisted, insane state of mind that people like this get into and hold on to so dearly. Because if I'm not superior, then what am I? Am I inferior? Underneath is this deep fear that somehow I'm inferior. I'm not enough. So understanding the psychology and the kind of the energy behind the whole thing can make us feel compassionate towards us and make us even more willing to examine ourselves where these things lie. As I said earlier, I know that just ingrained in my whole nervous system is a certain sense of white male entitlement. It's even different than white female entitlement. I mean, I grew up as, that men were superior to women, that they were subordinate, right? Now, it was just in the air, right? Grew up in a totally white town in the Midwest in Illinois. And that was just kind of what it was. And of course, I lived through the civil rights movement. I lived through the women's liberation. I lived through all of these tumultuous things, which kind of threw the whole world into chaos. But I can still, every now and then, I'll hear about some kind of racial thing, and I'll just be aware of yet another aspect that's in me. I have to be willing to come to terms with that and to recognize that these kinds of patterns are there, not pretend like I understand something, because I've seen it from a distance or watched a good documentary or something, or because I believe everybody should be equal, right? These kinds of habits and patterns, we need to be vigilant in ourselves. And that helps us fight it at the root, right? So when we get this manifestation of racism, and racism is artificial. The real problem in this country is an inequality of wealth. The real problem is poverty and a group of people who want the whole enchilada. That's the real problem. It's a class, and they're really good at turning it into it's Mexicans or it's blacks or it's Muslims or terrorists, right? They're really good at manipulating it. But the real problem is that there's a few people controlling the assets that belong to all of us, right? It's as if you're playing Monopoly, and when the game starts, there's like 10 people in the game. One of them has 90% of the money and all the property, and you're supposed to play this game and win. So, whoop, my chair in my room where I do my video editing and stuff is a yoga ball. That's why you'll see me bouncing. So perhaps that helps, Eli. If you want me to go into that a little bit more, I will, because I know it's like on everybody's heart and mind right now. Mary, hello, Mary. Good to see you. David and Elaine, my good friends. Questions often arise here, but before being asked, the answer is provided during satsang. The answer arises at the most appropriate time for the situation. In relative terms, this would be labeled synchronicity, and the mind suggests that they occur in time, but we simply say they both arise from the same source, oneness, consciousness. Right, no question, no answer. We see them in time. We see everything unfold in time, desire and fulfillment. We see them as in time, and in fact, to experience anything, right, it has to be experienced in time, because the reality is there is no time, and it's all one. But to experience the joy of fulfillment means to experience the intensity of joy or of desire and the fulfillment of it. So they do both arise from the same source. They both express the same source, and they give expression to the same source. I mean, what would love be without that kind of yearning, right? And so this is, non-duality is not a denial of human feelings and human experiences. It shows for what they really are. That in the multiplicity there is the oneness, and there's no other way. Oneness, there's only one way for oneness to express itself, to experience itself, is it has to create an imaginary two. That's how it tastes it. So it both is the honey and tastes the honey. This is the way, this is what we're all experiencing. This is what you are experiencing, because you're consciousness. And so there's consciousness in diversity is what we call looking outward. And in the oneness is when we're looking inward. For you are that one. The experience of David and Elaine, your relationship, every aspect of it, is expressive of that one. And romantic relationships are beautiful that way. That's their purpose, because they're that intense desire for unity, for that oneness, and the fulfillment of that is just a foretaste of heaven. So thank you. And yes, isn't it amazing how a question will arise and then it'll be answered? Because the questions and the answers are one. Right? No question, no teacher. Right? The answer arises with the question. This is the way it works. Everything is a dependent arising, simultaneously arising. That was one of the key insights from the Buddha, that saw through the illusion of time. Everything is simultaneously appearing. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Neither. They both appear at the same time. Tober Paul, hi G. Awakening happened intellectually and sometimes experientially, but my mind is still busy and I repeat patterns. Is this spiritual bypassing? And then he says, hi Ava. No, it's not spiritual bypassing, right? Look, how much time over your life, or maybe over lifetimes, have you invested in the active mind? You've not only been feeding it, you've been feeding it high quality, farm to table, non-GMO, organically grown food, the most nourishing food on the planet. So suddenly you realize that you're not this mind. You think it's just going to all of a sudden just, kind of roll over and play dead? No, that momentum is still there. So what? Who's watching it be busy? Obviously, if there's a busy mind, there's something watching it going, oh, look, it's a busy mind. Now, if you say this is a problem, right, which is also the mind, because that's part of the busy mind, it says there's a problem. If you agree with that, right, and go, oh, this is a problem, you have just stepped into the very thing you don't want to step into. Okay? So the repeating patterns are going to happen. If you know they're going to happen, your forewarned is forearmed, right? There it is again. So you're not bypassing it. You're actually recognizing the nature of it. And when we really do start waking up, we realize how much of that there actually was. That, I mean, we were completely immersed in this imaginary world that was just grinding along in a momentum that was totally unpleasant. But when you say it happens intellectually, a lot of people want to discount that. Awakening isn't intellectual. It isn't intellectual in that it is the drawing of a conclusion. It's an insight and a shift in perception that suddenly things don't look the same way. What used to seem so true to you isn't true. Why? What's happened? Now you could say it was intellectual, but it isn't. A shift in perception has taken place. Now, that shift in perception that takes place, we know of as an awakening mind, right? That's the best way to put it. And for almost everybody, that's where awakening starts. Now, if you think the mind is supposed to all of a sudden go quiet, then it will keep you in a struggle here. And you'll think, oh, it's just intellectual. I don't really get it. It's not true. You got it. But you have to maintain the vigilance that you are not what you are looking at, right? And continue to turn towards what's doing the looking and allow that to sink into the rest of the nervous system. So it moves from simply being mind into being heart, emotions, until eventually it just takes over everything and it is life. It's life itself. The being that is animating this body is now the being, the one being, the being that is all beings, the one beingness, the one I that animates all forms. So yes, we can say it's true on a certain level. I'm getting it intellectually. All that means is I got it, but it hasn't sunk in yet. I'm still having emotional patterns that are coming up. There's still triggers taking place. There's still trauma energy stuck in the body. There's still thought patterns going on. Yes. But if you have even gotten an inkling that those are what you are witnessing and that you are not that, that is not intellectual. That is a direct perception of the truth. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So you simply, you deepen it. You don't let anything cloud that vision. You don't let any thought say, you didn't get it. Good try, though. You're almost there. Keep going. You need another 10 lifetimes, another 50 retreats. Right? Don't buy it. Don't buy it. Where are you looking from? Are you this busy mind, or this disturbed nervous system, or are you the witness of it? Don't worry about this. This is just an organic machine. It'll take some time for it to adjust, but that's what it does, right? That's all it does is adjust to environments. You're the environment. You're the space in which it's happening. And you stay with identification with that space, that emptiness, that stillness, and it will eventually adjust to you. You don't have to adjust to it anymore. Well done. And good to be here. Glad to hear your feedback on the news. Oh, I'm so glad. I know everybody's heartbroken about it and angry. And I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff has been set loose, and rightfully so. But we have to be wiser than serpents and harmless as doves, because there are many that are going to try to twist this and turn this into some kind of a problem with an isolated few instead of what it really is, which is a systemic collapse of a system that doesn't work and never has. It never has. Capitalism is a failure. It always has been. It cannot work. You cannot have somebody doing something only for their own profit and have it benefit humanity. It can't work, right? You can't deal with an international crisis like a pandemic when you have to make a profit off of it. You can't. You cannot function. You can't deal with health issues. You can't deal with housing or homelessness. You cannot deal with any of the realities of human life when the solution must be profitable. This is the whole flaw of capitalism. And capitalism and democracy cannot live in the same system, no matter how much they claim they do. We can do better, folks. We can do way better. So, do you believe that our state of consciousness, Arby, forgot to say your name, hello. Do you believe that our state of consciousness evolves? In other words, I've heard about ascending to the fifth dimension. Is this something you believe in? I believe in the zeroth dimension. I believe in the dimensionless. All dimensions are a perception, whether it be the three that we're used to, or the fourth of time, or the fifth, or the current model of the universe, which I think is 12 or 8 or something like that, the mathematical models of different dimensions, they're all perceived. The perceiver is dimensionless. Now, if you refer to states of consciousness as like a state of mind, it's just different kinds of perceptions, different ways of looking at things. We can all say for sure that our perceptions have shifted over the years, right? Now, if you refer to that as a state of consciousness, I say, yes, it's evolved. It evolves. We become kinder. We become more intelligent. We become more perceptive, become more nuanced. We become more sensitive to beauty and to truth. All of that happens, right? But all of these evolutionary patterns, all of these changes and transformations taking place, are all being cognized by something, aren't they? There's something that isn't changing, isn't evolving, that is recognizing the evolution. Self-evident, right? So what I refer to consciousness or pure awareness is not the perceptions that are shifting, but the seeing that is not shifting. That is dimensionless. It is timeless. It doesn't go to fifth dimension or the 100th dimension. It's not super consciousness or super duper consciousness. It is the ultimate, which cannot be measured. You can't get enough dimensions to measure it. It is timeless. It is spaceless. Space and time appear in it. Well, that is to say, in you, because you're the one that is perceiving the different states of consciousness, aren't you? Something is looking and going, oh, that consciousness changed. Right? What's that? That's what I always bring people's attention to. And it's so obvious once you see it, go, yeah, you're right. There's something that's been watching this whole thing happen, and that hasn't changed. That's true consciousness. That's the real deal. That's truth. You follow that? I always want to bring attention to that, because people get into the multi-dimensions and all of that kind of stuff. And certainly there are very amazing kinds of experiences we can have and have had, and many people do, right? Transcendent, out of body, plant medicines and all that kind of stuff. And they're all valid, right? Right? Because they break down the walls of our conventional thinking, and they open us up to greater possibilities. But if you experience it, there's something else that is acknowledging and cognizing the experience. In satsang, non-dual inquiry, its whole purpose is to turn your attention to that, away from experience, however wonderful it is, to the one having the experience. That's self-inquiry. That's knowing yourself. That's self-realization. And that self-realization is also called awakening, enlightenment, the ultimate knowledge, Buddha nature, God. Right? But this is the the essence of what we teach here. I just got distracted for a second because I realized I left my little roller desk outside. Oh well, too late. Does that help, Arby? Wow. Hopefully it's, are you guys picking up the sound of the rain? Is it hard to hear? It's pretty loud for me. It's a wood roof. This is actually an octagonal log cabin, big log cabin, but log cabin. Nazrin in Ireland, and Kamal in India. Good to see you guys. Daryl in Maryland. Hello, Daryl and Mary. Well said, GP. We can't thwart the truth. No. Good. Yeah. Try as we may. Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Good to have you here. October Paul. Beautiful and powerful words on racism, G. Well said. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, spiritual teachers should be willing to not mince words, right? When you see bullshit, call bullshit, right? It's the only way it's going to come out from hiding. And we can call bullshit on people who are quite despicable and still love them, right? Because I know what happened. Any one of us could be that. Any one of us could have been that cop if we had been born in a particular place, a particular time, particular set of conditioning. Right? It's not a personal problem. It's a systemic one. And it arises, and it's old, but its time has for it to end has come. Thank God. Can I get an amen? Michael. Hello, Michael, in Western Massachusetts. Good to see you, my friend. P.S. says hello, Billy Boy. 7,465. A lot of Billy Boys out there. Hello, GP from Florida. Never miss any of your satsangs. I was always amazed at the clearness of your pointings. Your words are set to the music that inspires me. Many blessings. Well, thank you. Thank you, Billy Boy. The clarity amazes me too. I really want you to understand this. I always like to make the point to people that wisdom is not a personal possession. Wisdom shines through, right? Believe me, and I think I've told some of the people my story. I was not a candidate for spiritual teaching, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I was all in. So it was a major intervention that opened me up to this, and an awareness that it wasn't me. It wasn't the me I knew, right? That things were coming through me. In the beginning, came as music and all sorts of different things came through, but I was so aware that it was coming through. Nonetheless, my ego loved it, got attached to it, thought I was very cool. Just as I was feeling really cool, that's when the boiling hot soup falls in your lap, right? Life has this way of kind of like, hitting you upside the head with the Zen stick. And now it's gone beyond that idea that there's a me and there's just something coming through me. There's no me here. Okay? So what's coming through this form is the only intelligence there is. But the intelligence that's enjoying what's coming through me is the same intelligence. There's no difference, right? There's absolutely no difference. Think of this body as the radio. The radio does not originate or create anything that it amplifies into the room. It just amplifies it. The spirit that moves the form is not contained in or limited by the form. That's the nameless and the formless and the unknowable, the Tao that can't be spoken. But it's you. It's the real you. It's the only I there really is. And that's the wonder of it. You know, the one that's hearing my words right now, you can't imagine how infinite it is, how infinite you are. That consciousness that perceives is the consciousness, not one of many. John M. Hey, John. Hi, G from Florida. Thanks for putting up with my crap. No. I get crap. Believe me, I get some crap with people. Angry, bitter, condemning. I mean, some of the things I have been called. No, buddy, you're. I like your vigorous, challenging. You want to know, how do we deal with others' egos and/or sufferings and/or judgments? Well, the only thing, the ego needs to learn how to deal with other egos. You don't, right? Learn that you're not the ego, and you won't have any problem with egos anymore, right? Because it's only the ego that reacts to another ego. The reactive pattern of the nervous system is the ego. The ego is not a thing, it's not a person, it's not somebody, right? It is a word that we've used to designate a conditioned pattern of thought, feeling, and emotion. But consciousness, because it is something, identifies with that. Right? I am this thought, these thoughts, these emotions, these conditionings. And that's the ego. When there's no identification here, you realize that you're talking to a robot and that's not actually conscious, but there is consciousness there. So when I speak, I only speak to consciousness, because why speak? I mean, why speak to an inanimate object? Come on, get it. Don't you get it? There's no point in speaking to that. I can't speak to a robot. I speak to you because you hear me. The robot doesn't. That's just a bunch of patterns. Boy, how many times a week do I say this? You're not your conditioning. This is the big secret. You mistook what in fact is the nervous system conditioning itself in an environment in order to survive. You got the idea that that's who you are. And so the I in the mind is referring to conditioning, to patterns of thought, patterns of emotion, patterns of reaction, patterns of sensations, memories, associations, etc. This whole package, which is nothing but a very complex and very subtle system, simply creating all these reactions and stuff to conform itself to a particular environment so that it survives. There's no consciousness there. There's no sentience there. You, who are conscious and really are the sentient being, mistake the conditioning for yourself. That's the birth of the ego, the separate self. That is what's called the fall. And that is what we wake up from. You are not that. You're not John. John is the name your parents gave to the result of them having some fun one night. It has nothing to do with you. I hope it was fun. I hope they enjoyed it, Otherwise, why bother? So now, other people's sufferings. Now, well, I'll get to judgments next, because judgment is all the ego. Right? One ego says, I'm like this, you should be like this, you're not like that, judge. That's all it is. It's comparison of the ego trying to shore itself up, trying to give substance to itself by comparing itself to something else. Remember, the ego has no substance in and of itself. It's a false belief, right? So it can't sustain itself. It can't complement itself. It can't get self-esteem. It has to compare to somebody else. Otherwise, it has no context. That's why solitary confinement in a prison is the worst punishment you can give a human being. Unless, of course, they're an experienced meditator, then it's pure joy. Okay? But for anybody else, the deprivation is, I don't know who I am because there's no one to give me any kind of feedback. That's what the ego needs. So it's a constant interaction, either getting confirmation and approval, or getting control, getting recognition, or comparison, denying, pushing away. I'm better than you. You're not good. You shouldn't be doing those things. Watch that entire pattern of thinking that the mind gets into, and then recognize that you're the one watching it. It's not you. This is the sweet secret. You're watching it. It's appearing to you. It is not you. If it was you, it couldn't appear to you, could it? Right? You can't step outside of you. And, as fast as you go, you simply can't step outside of you and see you. So just maintain the position that once you see it is self-evident. You're always the consciousness aware of conditioning. At this point, you don't even have to worry about what the conditioning is. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it useful? Is it not useful? It doesn't matter because it's not you. And of course, that's a power that transforms the conditioning because you just changed the entire world around it. But that's another story. Suffering. Well, dealing with others' suffering won't have an impact unless you're suffering, something you're afraid of. And the more you overcome your suffering, transcend it, see through it, by realizing that you're not the sufferer, right? Yep, conditions don't cause suffering. There has to be somebody there to not like the conditions, right? So suffering is always the sufferer. It's never the conditions. So if you dispense with the sufferer, there's no suffering. It's so subtle and it's so profound. And it's right out of the Four Noble Truths from the Buddha, one of the big realizations that for all of us, our suffering, we think it's conditional. I got to change the conditions. I got to get this person out of my life. I got to have more money. I've got to wear another mask. I've got to overcome all the world problems, right? They're causing me the suffering. Nope. Without somebody there to say, I don't like this. This shouldn't be happening. There's no sufferer. There's no sufferer. Right? Now, this does not make you indifferent to the suffering of others. This is not the kind of Advaita that says that nobody else is there. It doesn't matter. Nothing's happened. Nothing's going to ever happen. They're okay. No big deal. It's not that. Not at all. This is the path of the Bodhisattva. It actually sensitizes you to other suffering, but you don't suffer because of it. In other words, you almost become a lightning rod through which their suffering can actually be somewhat diffused. I mean, they've got to do this kind of work on their own for sure to fully realize it. But there's all sorts of stories of the effect Christ had on people when he just walked by them, because he would take on their sufferings, but he didn't suffer. And the way he's pictured, the miserable look on his face, I'm sure that's not what he was like. And he felt it. It went through him. It never stayed there. So he healed just by his very presence, right? Now, obviously, some things were deeper. It didn't, not everybody happened. Didn't happen everybody. That went to him like that. There was an interchange. There was a receptivity that made it happen. But I think you get the point. When you have completely transmuted all your suffering and the sufferer is gone, the sufferings of the world can come through you and they won't touch you. But what a light you become! What a healer! What a profound influence you are! And people just seek you out because they want relief from their suffering. Just don't make it personal. The suffer has to be gone, because if it's personal, I'm helping with their suffering. Oh, it won't be long before you'll be totally burdened. As you can see, there's plenty of people in in the helping practices, and alternative medicine and massage therapy and coaching and that sort of thing, that suffer because they've turned it into something personal. They don't know how to draw that line. The sufferer is what we dispense with, because the sufferer isn't real. No sufferer, no suffering. No fighter, no conflict, right? I teach inner reconciliation. You drop out of the fight. If there's no fight, there's no inner conflict, no suffering. There's none of this going on inside of me. I'm just purely equanimous. I'm allowing. I just let it move through. And I find that I don't suffer. I experience pain, grief, all sorts of loss, all sorts of things experience, but without suffering. Life can become more vivid then. So great question. Robert, this may be related to what is happening today. How would you deal with confrontation by someone who acts up to you in anger? Could we allow it? But emotions always come up. Well, yes, the emotions always come up when that sense of identity has really been divested. They'll come up, but it won't take you over. This is a tough one. Some people say I should defend myself. What if it's an act of violence towards you? I think for the most part, you won't have any choice. Your body will respond, fight or flight, right? But if there's not overhead there, if there's not an agenda, if there's not a strong sense of identity, your body will just do what it needs to do. And it will be very, very appropriate. If you take that to the ultimate level, you get a Christ who didn't even offer up a defense for himself. He did not even bother trying to defend himself. He remained completely quiet. Over. But he never imputed guilt to the people who did that to him. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And remember, the word forgive, the way he used it, meant find them not guilty, vindicate them. So by not imputing guilt, he literally healed the sins of the world, because there was nobody there. If I'm not a victim, there's no perpetrator. That's the end of violence. Somebody's got to take the last hit, guys. And if one isn't coming back, eventually it has to stop. Gandhi knew that. Eventually had to stop. They left. They could not defeat nonviolence. They couldn't do it. Because violence cannot defeat nonviolence. Hate can't defeat love. Hate is the imaginary opposite of love. And it's imaginary. Love's the only reality. So you get lots of practice. Every emotion that comes up, be with it. Right? Practice now. So should that time ever come when it is a direct confrontation like that, it won't touch you. You'll be well practiced in the art of allowing. So, Daryl, GP, what do you say to folks? What do you say to folks that say there is clearly no global enlightenment happening, evidenced by the pandemic and the social unrest? Well, it depends. First off, are they actually willing to talk about it, or do they just have an opinion they want to hold on to? If anyone's right, if it's the latter, I just say, oh, yeah, you may be right, and just completely let it go, because it's not worth my time, right? And it's just not worth creating a conflict if there's no opening for genuine discourse, right? Let's face it, the position I take and you take, that this is a symptom of something very deep taking place within human consciousness, is not the majority view. Everything is seen on the level of the stuff that's happening. And so we seek political solutions and economic solutions and social solutions and all these systems and the like, right? Not recognizing that they're not seeing the fundamental thing that's causing all of this. Some do. Obviously, there's some of us that do see it. Some see it at different levels, see it as systemic, Like my criticisms of capitalism are at this level, but even capitalism is a reflection of something down here that's even more fundamental than that. So that's a symptom of something else, and on it goes. Now, the more deep into this you go, the better and more enduring the solution is. But we want to go all the way, right, to what's actually happening. It is a state of mind, a state of perception that the entire world is trapped in, and that state of perception that it's trapped in is the egoic mind. That I am a separate self. There's no way you can have unity on a planet with 8 billion separate selves. You can't do it. Right? The planet is huge for 8 billion unified beings that see themselves as a single being. There's plenty of room, right? 8 billion beings, man, is it crowded, as you can tell, squeezing out other species, that sort of thing. It is the egoic mind and the value system of self, which Buddha put perfectly in the three poisons: ignorance, delusion, and greed. Those are the natural, that is the smell of the ego. But the ego can't smell its own breath or its own farts, for that matter. Hence, it's inflated now. It's absolutely inflated. It's actually depicted beautifully in the book of Revelation, that John beheld in the sky a great red dragon, right? First he saw a woman, this goddess energy that was giving birth to a child. This child that child referring to is what we are experiencing right here. This genuine development of the true self. That's what it represented. But the image was the great red dragon was standing right there, ready to devour the child the moment it was born. Now, that great red dragon is a bloated version of the snake all the way from the very first chapter, right? Suggesting. Now it's not suggesting anymore. It's asserting. It's demanding. The great red dragon is people like Bill Gates and other folks who want to vaccinate everybody in the world and put a chip in to make sure they do, and then they won't be allowed to do anything they do. That's the great red dragon. It's not personal. It's an infection in an individual. It's a virus, way worse than coronavirus, of the ego that is completely isolates itself and creates its own little world in which it's a god. Bill Gates thinks he's a god. So does Elon Musk. I mean, even ones that are doing decent things, it is a mentality that has taken over that is not the general mentality of humanity. Right? But we're all suffering. We all have different levels of it. Right? So if I'm reacting to it on this one level from a position of weakness, I'm still in the egoic mind. We have to step out of it completely. Right? You can see it, the great red dragon. What in fact is just a whisper in an ear, right? In the beginning has become this huge aggressive force. But it's in consciousness, and it's being purged from consciousness. That's why it's exploded. It's exploded everywhere. So the social unrest is a result of our instinctive knowing that we can do better than this. Something's wrong. Something's completely wrong. It's just no reason, with the incredible wealth and assets and innovation and creativity and the resources of the earth and what we know about it and our intelligence, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be living in utopia. The only reason is ignorance, delusion, and greed. The great red dragon. So, where are we? Oh, I get lost. Oh, Daniel. Oh, wow. Daniel, thank you. Thank you very much. And Jay said, oh, geez, all these, Michael, the more I inquire and heal, the more energy I have. Seems like a lot of energy goes to holding on to trauma. Also, time seems to be going by quicker. Is time collapsing? Other times it might go slow. Yeah. Right now it's going fast. Right. There's no hard and fast rule. Just remember, you're experiencing time. The experiencer is timeless. So you can't say it's going fast or slow. It isn't moving, right? But your experience can really accelerate. You're absolutely right. um, I often use the example of all of the energy that it takes for the system to contain the traumatic material and sustain the ego. It's like holding a beach ball underwater, right? If you ever tried to do that, right? You don't have any energy, or you don't have any ability to do anything else, right? You want to reach for something. It takes everything, right? But what happens when all of this energy that's going here, you just go this, it just floats away. What happens? All that energy. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Right? I'm awake now. What am I going to do with all the time? I don't have to read any more books or go any more. What am I going to do with all the money? It's actually a bit of an identity crisis. But yes, but again, if suddenly the energy should drop, don't think there's anything wrong. Never identify yourself with the ups and downs of experience, because they will go up and down, right? And so, yes, there's this huge release, but if we think that's perpetual, it's gotcha. The moment we expect the impermanent to be permanent, even for a minute, it's got you. It's got you back in time. And what does time say? Everything you have belongs to me, right? Except you. Shanika. Hello, Shanika. Good to have you. Hi, GP. Gee, could you make the volume a bit louder, please? Okay. I will. Polona. Thank you, G. Good to listen to you. Jay again. Let's see. Thank you, G. Some of these reactions leave a trace in the memory, and even though it's not happening in the moment, I feel hesitant of doing certain things of fear of his opinions and reactions. Yes, this is, I experienced that. I experienced that too, right? I rent a room from somebody, very nice woman. We get along just fine. But whenever you're living, they're different. It's her house, not mine. I rent her, so I have rights to be here. But I find there's some certain things that I just may hold back on. I'm not afraid of her opinion, reaction, but to just kind of honor the boundary. I don't have to be, intimate and completely in sync with everybody, right? The people who are very close, to become incredibly close to me, right? Yes, you want to be in sync. It's a different kind of relationship. So in that case, just notice the fear, right? But don't think the answer to that is just blatantly do whatever you want to do. Notice the fear is there, because of course you don't, but there's also another element there too, right? You don't want to create, a conflict or a discord when you don't have to, right? So just focus your attention on your reaction that says, I'm afraid of his opinions, and just notice something. And you can do it right now, right? I feel hesitant. Okay, hold on. Slow down. Let's run this in slow motion. I feel hesitant. Okay, there's a feeling of hesitation in the body, right? Perfectly natural, because the energy knows certain conditions, this guy's going to go off and he's going to try to hurt me some way, whether purposefully or ignorantly, doesn't really matter. He's going to aim that at me. Now that's a mechanism in the body. It's very smart. It knows how to stay away from people, right? It knows how to stay away from people who 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 are just going to trigger it, right? Now, if you're aware of that, right, let's get to the I part of the feeling hesitant. Now, who's that I? Is that I hesitant? Or is there this place that's aware of the hesitation? The hesitation is legitimate and normal and intelligent. If we put a story on top of it that says, I'm afraid of his opinions, right? Rather than it's just a reaction of the nervous system, right? Then all of a sudden I'm stuck in this sense of being inferior. I got to resist, right? So where's my energy now? It's here. It's in defense. If in fact he makes little barbs and stuff like that, your nervous system is doing exactly the right thing. Remember, what do nervous systems do? What does the human nervous system do? It is constantly monitoring the environment to know what's safe and what's dangerous. And then it is conforming itself, like water being pushed in a particular shaped jar, to make sure it maximizes the safety and minimizes the danger. Now, this is an automatic process. You can't do anything about it. You didn't create it. This is what it does, right? Purely, it's like water. It takes shape of whatever container it is. Now, if I identify with that, see, that is me, rather than just the mechanism of the nervous system, which is the vehicle I am inhabiting for a short period of time. If I do that, if I identify with it, then suddenly becomes my fear, rather than the natural flow of the energy of the nervous system being very, very smart about how it is within the environment. And there's no overhead. The nervous system doesn't have a problem with that, right? It's just making sure that it's maximizing its comfort and minimizing its discomfort, right? It's not it's a pretty good thing to be able to do, don't you think? So um so I hope that can get it clear from you. The only problem that ever happens is when we identify with what in fact is a totally natural reaction of the nervous system. It's not you. It is what the nervous system does. And of course, his opinions are barbs. The nervous system, to avoid that, is going to the fear is uh, directing behavior and actions away from confrontation with it. But again, this is what it feels like when the nervous system is making adjustments. It's on alert. It's like, I don't want this to happen, so it's backing up. So don't own it as if it's a personal fear. It's not. He can't touch you. He can't even see you. You're the consciousness that is invisible to this world. It's made manifest through this form. This form gives expression to it, but the world can't see you because you're not a form. You're the formless consciousness inhabiting it. Thank you again, Daniel. John, non-duality is actually hedonism. Not really. I mean, to recognize that there is no absolute right and wrong, but there is the natural consequence of action. Non-duality transcends pleasure and pain, hedonism and puritanism, right? Those are just aspects, functions of life going one way or another. And if we get stuck in any of them, we've lost contact with ourselves. We've lost contact with reality. We've lost a sense of our own being, because you are the indefinable, unknowable entity that witnesses the flow. When the flow gets stuck, that's suffering. If the flow just is allowed to flow, but the way you allow it to flow, the way you don't get stuck, is you remember that you're the one witnessing the flow and you're not doing the flowing. So you're not a hedonist, you're not a Puritan, you're not right and wrong, you're not up, not down. You're a transcendent of all categorizations. Dale, good to have you. Massachusetts. Thanks, GP. Love and blessings. You're very welcome. Mary, in early morning meditation, I was using the words of St. Francis. What you are looking for is where you are looking from. Every time a thought would come, and after some time, I came to a realization. I saw how afraid I was to really love, as I saw my heart stuff shut off as a protection so as to not get hurt. Beautiful insight. I see that I have a belief that love is somehow weak, and to be on guard is strength. Seeing this has shown me how it hurts to believe this. Any suggestions? Well, I can't top that. I can't top St. Francis for sure. And I'm so glad that arose out of where you are looking from. Now, take it a step further. You saw how afraid, the fear of loving, and how that fear of loving, fear of getting hurt, fear of getting rejection, fear of being nice, fear of not getting your needs met, fear of being subordinated, a long list of things it could be afraid of, right, was seen, was witnessed. Prior to that, you were just in it. You were identified with it, right? The very fact that you see it means what? You stepped out of it. Now, because this is fresh and new, you think, oh, how do I deal with it? How do I do it? Now you see, you don't have to. All you have to do is look at it. It's not you. This is how the nervous system was programmed. Now you're sitting here. Before the programming took place, you identified with it. You didn't program it. It was just how it reacted to the environment, your particular set of circumstances and conditions and events that took place. That's how it. When we are not conscious, the nervous system just takes over and does it the best it can, right? But now, boom, consciousness is here. All bets are off. This is a new factor that wasn't there before. A conscious awareness that is not the conditioning, but is looking at it. What do you have to do about it? Nothing. Just every time it comes up, see it. Step back into the place you're looking from. Take St. Francis at his word. Go step back into that place that is seeing the emotional or energetic disturbance, right? And don't try to fix it, right? When you try to fix it, you've taken a position that it's wrong and you're right, which means you've stepped into it again, different identity, but you've stepped into the fray again, and you're going to duke it out. It's going to win because it's way stronger. It does this better than you do. But most importantly, because you want to get rid of this and change it, you're pushing it deeper into its defensive posture, which means it's going to hold on tighter because it's threatened, right? Just like a dog is threatened, it's going to back up. It's not going to come up and want to be petted, right? So let go of your agenda to change it and just watch, lovingly watch. Understand that this is a brilliant functioning of the nervous system. This is what it does. This is what makes the human system so freaking amazing, right? Right? But you're not that, right? If you were that, you couldn't see it. And when we are identified, we don't. And that's what it feels like to awaken. It's like, oh my God, I see this. I mean, every aha moment or insight is actually awakening. We just don't recognize it as such because we're still kind of steeped in the identification. But with the right, when you see it correctly, you've stepped out of the identification with the form. And the end result is, of course, it now is freed of your holding it in place by identification. Now, if you just take the position of the complete peacemaker, the perfect mediator, you've got no axe to grind, you have no agenda whatsoever. Thank you for doing such a good job taking care of me. What can I do for you? And now you are completely equanimous. You're completely open and compassionate and loving. And that's the atmosphere which will eventually purge this out of the system. And all of the traumas that created and all the experiences that created it will just fly out because you're no longer holding them in place. You have come here to the place you're looking from. And you can join St. Francis there because he's been there though. He's still there. Anand Nikhil, thank you, G. You're welcome. October Paul says, thank you so much, GP. I needed to hear that. I've never heard such wisdom. I'm, I'm laughing when people say things like that, and I recognize that, and it just doesn't com, compute. And known me my whole life, this rather strange character. So I laugh about it, the pure joy of it. It's so much fun. Thank you, Paul. John Lucas, Portland, Oregon. This is so good. Oh, hi, John in Portland. Glad. Mary Sykes, great explanation about the dimensions. Love it. My Ayurvedic practitioner has said the same thing. Yes, if he's truly Ayurvedic, he's really dialed into the Vedas, the depths of the Indian teaching out of which everything came. I mean, it's the source of everything. I mean, it is the mother country, the birthplace of spirituality. And yeah, the Ayurvedic, acupuncture, all of those things, they work with the system. When they get westernized, they get a sense of ego in it, a sense of self. But in the traditional models, they were all part of this disillusion of the self in one way or another. So Mary says it's perfect when you're in where you are inside, you're crystal clear. Yeah, this room's a little dark for me. If I'd built this house, and she actually had it built, I would have had windows. She has them in the other room, it's all filled with windows, but not in here. So I like to be outside. Jay says, Amen. You're a true therapist. Thanks. I've heard a human life is the rarest birth because of the one chance to know the truth. Yeah. In Buddhism, that's the tradition of it, that they say it like that. That the odds of being born in a human are astronomical. And, we don't have to prove whether that's true or not. All we have to prove is what it really points to is please regard human birth as a self-aware, that you actually have the capacity to ponder yourself, which apparently, as far as we know, other critters don't. They have all our capacity to love and to be present and to enjoy, right? And to fun and run and do all sorts of great stuff. But they don't have this capacity for self-reflection. So to recognize that is to recognize what an incredible opportunity and miracle you've been handed. Whether or not it's astronomical or there's, all of that, how it even comes about, right? That you do. The fact is you did. You got it. You won the lottery, right? Don't blow it. Right? Don't fall back into the unconsciousness that is a characteristic of our animal friends, which most people are. Look around. They are, and I don't mean animalistic and savage, because animals aren't savage. They do what they have to do. Right? They don't do it for fun or for sport or anything like that. Only humans get savage, right? That is, they're not really human yet because there's no self-reflection. Right? So they're still unconscious. They're human animals, but they're not human beings yet. That's who runs the world, by the way. Right? So yes, if you, however it came about, whatever the odds are, whatever it is, it came about for you. You are that, right? So appreciate the utter magnitude and wonder and gift that it is. It's the best way you can put it. Appreciate it. It is stunning. And the whole reason it happened is so we could engage in this conversation here. And you could be directed backwards, inward, to truly ponder yourself. Like I started talking, the self-inquiry. It is a turning around from everything that is evidently external, everything that is I am perceiving. If I can perceive it, it can't be me. And I just start inward until I have dispensed with everything that is not me. And I end up being purely me, self-realization. That is the potential that the human being has because of our capacity for self-reflection. There is no greater gift. There's no greater activity. There's no greater endeavor a human being can undertake. It is the reason why there are human beings. Right? Everything else is peripheral. So, yeah. Don't blow it. Or your answer to me. John M. Classes like it. Alicia. Hello, Alicia. In Argentina. You know, I used to have a place when I was married. I used to have a place in on Charca. Charca? Yeah, Charca. Charcas in Palermo, Hollywood. Yeah, that's where it was. It was lovely, a lot of fun. I love Argentina. GP keen on starting EFT course. I'm going to be opening up the EFT packages on Wednesday when I do the event that I'm doing with my dear friend Kelly, who's a hypnotherapist. We're focusing completely on anxiety. It's not a non-dual satsang kind of thing, because a lot of people, just don't get it as therapeutic as it is. So I'm focusing on EFT. He's focusing on hypnotherapy. We're both going to do some meditations together, really to do whatever we can to help people come to terms with the anxiety, which is unnecessary, right? We want to free people of that. So on Wednesday, I will be opening up all my courses, and then I will be shortly after that, I will be releasing the home study part of my certification training for EFT people. And then after that, I will be offering the interactive part with me. It's going to probably be about 5 weeks of interaction where we'll be practicing the way I do EFT till you get good enough that I can say, they're good. You can, go forth and multiply. Nawaf. Hi, GP. Nawaf from Saudi Arabia. Wonderful. I got awakened 5 years ago through listening to your lectures. I plan to understand the spirituality to be a teacher. What books or courses to attend? Wow. Lovely. I'd love to do some private time with you to test the depths of your awakening, to just kind of see where you are, before I could advise you. Maybe you need none. Maybe you need some. Don't 5 years has been some time to become seasoned in it. And I'd like to know more about you to be able to make an advisement like that. If you could book a private session with me, if you can't afford it, that's okay. We'll figure it out. Just send an email to support@gpwalsh.com, or you can just book a private session here. Yes, but in that case, it is going to ask you to pay. If you can't pay, get in touch with me, support@gpwalsh.com if it's too much money. But I think when somebody is saying that they're awakened and they want to, I want to check it. I want to kind of just put my finger in there and to see where you are and see what might still be needed. So wonderful. The world needs more teachers of this kind, for sure. It needs more love. It needs more compassion. It needs more wisdom. It needs more help. It needs more. I'm doing. I just started with Kelly. He's a good friend of mine, and I just love him. He's legitimate. He's got presence and character. Comes to the satsang sometimes. He's been to some of my live presentations, and he's a hypnotherapist, and it's a useful technique in our world. So I'm always encouraging anybody that is offering a relief from suffering and a degree of wisdom that empowers people, even if it's not a direct non-dual inquiry. To me, this is the ultimate. That's why I do it. Obviously, if I thought something else was the ultimate, I'd be doing that. This to me is the underpinning of the entire thing. So when someone has aspirations for being able to share this with others, and I like to see it as that, as sharing with others and not teaching. Word teacher kind of sticks, but you know. So I'd really love to explore this a little bit more with you. No, it really, especially in Saudi Arabia, this is wonderful. Yeah, because I'm not at all familiar with that, or the environment there, the kind of spiritual undercurrents that are going on, and that. So I'd love to hear more. Sensmita. Hi, GP. If I really desire something, which is mostly material, how do I align with it and get desirable outcome? That is a big question. I am going to be re-releasing on my new platform, the whole inner reconciliation. Level 1 is actually called The Miracle of Intentional Manifestation. And I named it that partially because I'm trying to build a bridge between people where manifestation and law of attraction and that is really their first entree into a world other than, strictly materialist, but it still has a lot of the materialistic ambitions on it. Right? We still see our happiness in terms of the things I get and that, and like now, mind you, that I'm not at all critical of that. Right? I like things. I like getting things, but what I've seen is that underlying our desire for some material possession is actually a desire to know ourselves better. Now, that isn't a denial of the desire for the thing, but what we want to do is turn our attention more towards where that desire is coming from. And when you take a desire and you bring it back to its source, you purify it, right? And what I mean by purified is just you don't make it holy or sacred, or it doesn't want anything material. What I mean, you purify it. It's simply what it is. It's itself. And if it's really a purely a desire for a car, then it's pure. And when it's pure, it has the opportunity to manifest itself. When it's impure, the energy is diffused. So we become very open to whatever it might be, totally accepting. A lot of people become spiritual, right? I'm spiritual past now. Oh, I can't want anything material. I'm going to take a vow of celibacy and a vow of poverty and that sort of thing. And then I'm spiritual, and we judge our desires and all that sort of stuff. I see that all the time. This isn't that, right? This is a really honoring your desire. But when people say that, how do I get desirable income? Their focus is not on the desire and the environment in which the desire is arising. It's on the thing, right? Now, if it's on the thing, that means the ego is involved, because the ego never wants to be here. The ego is never satisfied. It thinks the thing is what's going to satisfy it. But the thing can only manifest the energy that's here. If there's satisfaction here, it will be made manifest in the object that you're seeking. Because there is no satisfaction or success or achievement or abundance in the object. It's all in you. If you think it's in the object, you've created a separation that doesn't really exist, and you've created suffering. I need this to be happy, to be prosperous, to be whatever. I don't have it now. So I'm going to live now in lack until I get it. Now, what happens? All I'm doing is living lack. If I'm living lack, what am I going to get more of? Lack. And this little thing just it's the carrot and the donkey. It's further and further and further away. So you start with allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling. And then you don't take sides. When desire arises, there can be a wanting to grab it, or there can be and be an inner resistance to it. Your job is to stay neutral. I'm just here. I'm not taking sides. I honor this desire. I also honor my nervous system may have some resistance to this desire because of things that have happened in the past. Right? Maybe I was criticized for wanting that, or some spiritual idea, right? Or I was, some fundamentalist thing. Oh, you can't want it. You can't even think that. The devil's in your head. That sort of thing. There can be all sorts of reasons why there's an inner conflict between our desire and the drive for safety. So your job is to sit in the middle and be the peacemaker, right? That's what inner reconciliation is about. Especially the first level of it. It then gets into healing and the like. And then the final one, the final level 3 of inner reconciliation, is all about the nature of perception and non-duality. So it starts very gradually, but it starts really with what I call the yoga of allowing. You simply start allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling without judgment, right? Because the desire comes up. You even said it's mostly material. Can you sense that there's a judgment in it? So what? So what? You know, I like new stuff, right? You know, there's some instruments I want to buy. You know, oh, that's material. So when you really look at it, you find at the base of all of our desires is the desire to know ourselves and to express ourselves, which is totally innocent, right? So, is that helping, Zensmita? I hope so. Claysu says, love the new look. Very hot. Thank you. Yeah. Kind of knew it, didn't I? Unless, of course, you're referring to the room, and that's me. I guess I jumped on a compliment a little bit too soon, huh? Sophie. Hello, Sophie. Dear GP, on having the realization of awareness, light breaking out of the shell in the moment, the shock of being so aware caused mind running back. Oh no, get me out of here. Security, can you speak of overcoming this? Yes, have a good laugh. This is what the mind's going to do. Oh my God, the jig is up. Overcoming this stage so awareness can be established. Thank you. Right. Here's how you establish it. It's not a state you've gained. What happened is the clouds disappeared for a moment and you saw the sky. The cloud came back, right? Has the sky gone, right? Remember, the awareness isn't a blissful moment. It's not a peak experience. It's not the sudden light, right? That's the symptoms of recovery, right? That's the experience you're having. When you have that, and of course it's so grand, you never want to let go of it, but then the darkness, the clouds come back again. You go, oh no, I lost it. How do I get it back? Okay, slow down. Right. Is the awareness that was aware of the breaking of the shell and the light, and the awareness that's aware of the cloud and the mind running back for security, are they different? So what's the real awareness? It's not the light. It's the one seeing the light. And the one seeing the light and the one seeing the cloud are the same one. That is awakening. Let your sense of identity keep going back to the one that had the experience. And then suddenly the experience itself won't matter. Now you're established in awareness. So awareness is not the least bit concerned about what it's aware of. It's only aware. Look at that. You know, I think I heard it was Rupert Spira used this analogy, and I thought it was so good I stole it from him. I guess I didn't steal it because I just gave him credit, right? Imagine he actually he grew up in a town where it was dark. It was cloudy all the time, right? And I lived in Washington State, which is cloudy a lot of the time. Now imagine you live in a town, in a country, a part of the world where it was always cloudy. It was always overcast. You'd never actually seen a blue sky. You didn't know the sky's gray. That's all, right? That's all you know. All of a sudden, every now and then, very weirdly, this little patch of blue appears in the gray sky. What in the world? Everybody be amazed. This patch of a blue thing in the sky, right? Well, then technology grows and somebody actually invents like a hot air balloon, and the scientists, and they're just waiting for the blue thing to appear in the sky so they can find out what is this. Up they go in their balloon, and They get up close and it's very strange. And they keep going, and all of a sudden they're in it and they're terrified, right? Oh my God, right? Or maybe right at that moment, it disappears. But maybe all of a sudden, all the way above it, oh my God, the sky. And they realize that that's the sky. And the gray stuff was what was in front of it. The gray stuff was the thing, not the sky. The sky's blue, not just a blue thing appearing in the gray sky. You get the analogy? When these breakthroughs take place, we think that's it. No, it's not. That's a little opening in the gray. It is it in the sense that it's there, but it's always there. There was just an opening. Now, you keep coming back to the one seeing it, and eventually that aperture will open and it won't close again. Thank you for that, Sophie. Beautiful. Michael, hey GP. When I sleep at night, I dream. Do my body lay in bed? My question is, take place in the brain? The question is very important for me. Well, the brain is a material explanation of phenomena, one that I don't agree with, right? At best, the brain is like a receiver of a radio, but we can even go beyond that as well. From your direct experience, Ramana Maharshi actually said, when you fall asleep at night, the body goes away. So does the world. There is no world. There is no body. And from your direct experience, right, without any other information, if nobody ever told you anything about bed and sleep and all of that stuff, if you had no other mental model, what would your experience be? I'm here. This is gone. Doesn't exist. And now I'm in this other world. It's different, right? It's weird. It doesn't have any rules. It has no physics. I can fly. I can do anything. And then there's another period of time where there's absolutely nothing. Just dreamless sleep. Now, from your perspective, every one of those is your experience, right? But when one is gone, it's gone. It's not there. Now we wake up and we believe that we woke up in the same world we left, that it's been there while I was sleeping. And so we have this picture in our minds of us laying in a bed, out unconscious, doing our sleep thing. But you've never actually experienced that. Now I'm bold enough to say, which is more legitimate? The direct experience you're having, or what somebody else has told you is happening? No matter how many people believe it, no matter how many people tell you, now how many letters they have after their name, or how many lab coats they've got on, it completely contradicts your own experience. Does it happen in the brain? You're talking not to a scientist, but you're talking to a non-dual teacher. And the answer is no, it does not. Consciousness is not confined in the brain. It animates the brain. The perceptions, the cognizance of all experience is consciousness. And consciousness is the origin of it. It is the source of it. It appears in consciousness, it appears to consciousness, and it is made of consciousness. All I can do is invite you to take this to heart and contemplate your own experience. And notice how your own experience completely contradicts the general beliefs. And now it becomes a matter of, who do I trust? Myself? Or everything everybody else has ever told me? But nobody else has ever had my experience. How can they possibly tell me what I'm experiencing? They tell me all about me, but that's only their perception of me from a distance. They're not here. They don't know me. They don't know my experience. Only I do. So what's most trustworthy? It's a big one, I understand, because there's a huge weight of belief about it. But the beauty of it is that if what I'm saying is truth has a way of letting you know it, right? If it's true, it's everywhere. It's not separate from you. Therefore, you have direct access to it. What I'm saying is your experience is the direct access to the truth. But your direct experience is and will contradict the general beliefs. Just because a lot of people believe it doesn't make it true. This is this is the this is the kind of courage and fortitude it takes to do genuine non-dual inquiry, because you will come to conclusions that nobody else on the planet believes. You'll be completely contradicting everything everybody's thought, going all the way back to, I'm contradicting daily classical analysis, the foundation of modern science and modern thought. The classical analysis, 3,000 years old, came from the Greeks. It's wrong. Its fundamental assumption is that the observer and the observed are separate objects, and if I want to know something, I deconstruct it down to its component parts, and then I know what the thing is. That's the whole foundation of Western thought. 3,000 years later, they're still searching for that thing and have yet to find it. That's because it's not there. In India, a very different perspective arose that is seen in the Vedas. And not just because there's thousands of gods and all sorts of different religious traditions and that sort of thing. They don't fight each other over it like we do because they don't have that perspective. But the Vedas presented a very different view. My perception is its reality. Nothing exists separate from my perception. Exactly the opposite of the Greek. Now, where's most of the chaos in the world? Which philosophy is destroying the planet? And you can have an inkling into which one's closer to the truth. So I hope that helps you. I know this is a tough inquiry because it is so contradictory. Oh my God, over 2 hours and I've got a ton left. Let's see here. Nawaf says, how come the law of attraction states we can manifest what we desire while we know for sure that we're not always get what we wish as a fact of life? The law of attraction has truth in it, but it is a very remedial truth. It is because it's based very much on, there's no questioning of me, the nature of desire. There's no interest in the law of attraction for self-realization or self-discovery. It is all about getting what I want. If I want it, I can put my mind and emotions in a state that I will get it. That's the foundation of it. Some people have enough strength of will and concentration that they can do that, and it has worked. Most people can't, right? Why? Because it takes a very certain kind of energy, the kind of energy like it takes to become a world-class athlete or something like that, and not everybody has it. But the point is it never questions the validity of the desire or the one who has the desire. It is not an introspective or spiritual engagement. A lot of people who are spiritually inclined get into it, right? But that's not its purpose, right? I actually once heard somebody asked Abraham a question about non-duality, and Abraham went off on how it was all just a desire. It was total nonsense, total bullshit. They clearly had no idea what it was, right? Right? Kind of made me wonder who this whole Abraham thing is, what she's talking about. Not to discount it, because there's a lot of wisdom in it. I've even enjoyed listening to it, but it's remedial. It is not a spiritual pursuit. It is not interested in who you are or knowing who you are. It's only interested in getting what you want. That's dangerous, right? Because the ego's got all sorts of desires. Hey, the uber wealthy are getting what they want. Donald Trump got what he wanted, right? Is it good? Heavens no. My God, no. What a disaster for the rest of us, right? So, let let's become mature about this kind of thing. Let's broaden the perspective. Um, you don't always get what you want. Um, if you know who you are already completely fulfilled. And therefore, desire is not to get something, the desire is always to give. There's nothing for you to get because you're already whole and complete. That realization doesn't end desire, it transmutes it from a getting to a giving. It goes from need, it goes from business transactions to love. What a different approach. And yes, the level of vibration I put out does affect things. If I concentrate on a particular thought, you're going to find more thoughts like it gathering around. Observe that. It's very, very true. So where are your thoughts going to go? Oh, I'm going to go towards getting what I want. That won't work because that energy is not coming from you. It's coming from a sense of you that's full of lack. It's one of the big problems with all of that. The people who are practicing it are all full of lack. Get rid of the lack, free yourself from the lack, and then start playing with desire and see what happens. It's a very different world. Mary Sykes, I find your teachings and approach a balm for my soul. And blessings. Thank you, Mary. Cletus says, I have two nervous systems, sympathetic and parasympathetic. If I nurture the latter, I have access to more power. Yes, they, I'm not a neurologist, so I can't specify exactly the difference, but look at what the overall functioning is. The scientific names for them isn't as important as look at what the overall function is. It's the development of automatic behavior to make sure that the organism survives in the environment. That's its function, right? That's its primary function. And in a human being, it has a secondary function, right? Which is almost as important and just as powerful. And that is the drive towards self-expression. The human system, human is a expressive vehicle. It is an instrument for the expression of consciousness. Right? Most people never realize that because the system is stuck in defensive posture, which of course is job one. If you don't survive, there's nothing to express, right? So it's got to accomplish that. The problem is most people get stuck there. So if you are nurturing it, to me, nurturing means I'm accepting. I'm recognizing its nature. I'm letting it be what it is, and I'm working with it as it is. I'm not trying to force it into being something other than it is. So I can't force the aspect of the nervous system that is only concerned about survival. I can't force it to do anything else. So instead, I reconcile with it. I work with it. While I can't get it to not be completely adamant about keeping me safe, I can get it to go about doing it in a different way, thus making me more functional and giving more access to self-expression, which is, of course, what we want, growth, and that sort of thing. So I don't break the nervous system down into its component parts. I speak of it as kind of a whole. I also use it actually in almost synonymously with the energy system, which is actually a more subtle level. The energy system actually gives rise to the nervous system, as the people in acupuncture know, but in the West, they don't believe, because everything in the West is physical. If there's no physical structure, it can't exist. So I hope that helps. Yes, access to power. And what is power? The power is the capacity to see the truth. What are the power? Because the truth holds all power. Therefore, if I'm aligned with truth, I'm harmonized with truth, and better yet, I realize that I am truth, my power is infinite. I can't be touched. I can't be hurt. I can't be killed. This body can, but won't have any effect on me because I'm not in it. I'm not that. This is a vehicle. Yeah. You could burn my car. Won't have any effect on me. Right? Which would be exactly the same as the body dying. Um, okay, I'm speeding up here a bit. Thanks, GP. So it comes with great reminders. Great, Jay. Thank you. Robert, G, you've mentioned desire a lot as being allowable. Where do these ideas come from? Nature. Where does the wind come from? I mean, it's simply the way life is manifesting itself, and life is consciousness made manifest. So it arises out of its own nature, right? The dog barks. Why does it bark? Because it's a dog. That's what they do, right? And you don't ask it to meow. If you ask it to meow, you're going to really be disappointed. But if you let it bark, you got a dog, right? It's what they do. So when we're looking at where this comes from, why is this like that? That's really the mind trying to control things, right? When you completely let go of that, you're just stunned at the perfect order and unfoldment of the universe. It's like, wow, where did it come from? You're in awe of it. Where did it come from? It just is. This is the nature of being for this. It's a wonder. It's a mystery. It's a miracle. It's pure joy. It's a celebration. Mary, thank you for your answer, GP. Always saying the St. Francis quote. It's helped me so much. Me too. Me too. Oh my goodness. No more questions, folks. I've got to eat something before I have to get another call. Yes, Daryl says so many dimensions appear in consciousness as everything does right. Consciousness has no limit to the dimensions it can give rise to. But consciousness in its essence, pure awareness, is dimensionless. Because it is dimensionless, it can give rise to infinite consciousness, infinite dimensions. If it itself had a dimension, there couldn't be anything else. If the essence was in fact confined to any form whatsoever, even a multidimensional form, that would be the limit of being. But it isn't. It's empty. Therefore, infinite dimensions, infinite possibilities, infinite universes, infinite timelines, right? There is no limit because the essence is empty. Namaste, Gunnar. Good to see you. Sarah, happy to be here. Hello, Sarah. Janet, thanks for your humor. Yesterday's samadhi, today's strong mind attack. The ego knows it's on its way out, my belief systems, and is protesting. I did some Ho'opono and cleared it out. Well done, Janet. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it knows its days are numbered. It even said there's a beautiful reference again in the book of Revelation that the true meaning of it unfolded to me maybe 40 years ago. And it talks about the war in heaven, right? This war, and of course, it's been interpreted the devil wanted to take over. Of course, the devil means the ego. That's what it refers to. I want to be praised, not God. So anyway, there's the war in heaven, right? The conflict, right? And then suddenly samadhi, the devil's cast out. Where does the devil go? According to the book of Revelation, the devil's cast out to the earth, to the body, right? Where it walks to and fro over the earth because it knows it has but a short time. It's a beautiful metaphor, right? People experience that. You have the enlightenment and then the body goes nuts or the mind goes nuts. That's all right. Devil just got kicked out of heaven. He's running around here trying to find a place to be, trying to rent some property. It's all right. No vacancy, right? No mask, no service. The devil doesn't wear a mask, right? He's too arrogant, like our president. So anyway, Alicia, love. Finally. I know you've been waiting for the EFT stuff for a while. Do I have a link for Wednesday? I think I actually may have put one up here. Yes, I do. Look at that. I am putting out some reminder emails. I'm going to be putting out some preliminary videos. I will also be putting out to my entire list. It's going to both Facebook and YouTube. So it'll be available for you. Nobody will miss out on it. David says, do you have any advice for reducing inflammation in the body? Oh, wow. Well, I don't know you personally. So, I always recommend, as well as the, inquiry and emotional and EFT, for these kinds of things, for therapeutic kinds of things. Also, what are you eating? Is it good, healthy, organic food, lots of greens, a minimum amount of meat, or no meat at all? Do you exercise? Are you doing some things to, help with stress and that sort of stuff? Are you stretching, yoga, some kind of thing like that? If all of that is in order, is there some specific thing going on in the body that it needs? And then I recommend really using like EFT, at least the way I do EFT, which I'm going to be teaching people how to do, um, to talk to the body as if it's another energy, because it is. It's an intelligent energy that you can communicate with, as long as you don't see it as this dead thing that you have to tell it what to do. Just remember that the body's very smart. If it's inflamed, it's not a problem. It means this is the way it's having to react to something. There's something intruding, something's there that it's trying to deal with. Your job is to help it to do that. And you do that through, of course, all the things I laid out there, just, your basic nutrition and exercise and, and stress relief techniques and things like that. And then if all of that is in order, then we can start tapping on it, see if there's some kind of energy block there. So sorry, I'm speeding up because I'm over my 2 hours, and I always hate to go without answering the question. I keep getting more comments. Thank you, my great master, says Ava. Grateful for the grace of having possibility of participating. I'm so glad to have you here too, Ava. As is everybody. Święta Ava, which means Saint Ava, because she's Polish. She taught me how to say that. Then Mia says, thank you. You're very welcome. Jay says, you are only what you know for sure. Everything else is guesswork, assumptions, temporary and changing experience. Yes, that's why self-knowledge is the knowledge. It's the only knowledge. It's the only thing you can know for sure, right? This could all be a complete hallucination. But the reality that you are here having a hallucination is not hallucination. Something has to be there to hallucinate, right? You are the reality. That's it. You can look to you and find the entire infinite reality. Don't need to go out anywhere. You're it. The mere experience that you are. Thank you very much, says Michael. You're very welcome. Oh, Sally. Hello. Just tuned in early morning in Adelaide, South Australia. Oh, yes, I know. I know. I wish you guys could join more, but we can do another private one for your group if you like at some point. Anja, thank you for being for great thought. You're very welcome. Thank you for beautiful getting in that heart of everyone in a way. It's a great image. Thanks to Rupert for that one. I borrowed it from him. I can say borrow because I gave him credit. Otherwise, I have to say I'm stolen. Thank you, GP, the constant gardener. It's all beautiful. We got to eat. Amen, Alicia. Me too. Thank you all. It's been another wonderful, wonderful Sunday to spend with you. And now look, the sun is shining. It's all calmed down. I could be outside again. So thank you all for joining me. Ralph, hello, Ralph. Good to see you all. So that's the workshop right there. That is private sessions with me. If you want to take a private, we can dig into something particular, gpwalsh.com/private. And if you are so inclined, oops, not that one. If you are so not that one, but that one, to help me pay for all of this, I'm always very, very grateful. So thank you all for being here. I just love you all so much. And until next time, until Wednesday, namaste.